Hello, I am Ben Zabornik, and today we will be building a computer with my partners Dave McW and Jack H. There are 8 major components that go into building a computer. We will go over them individually. Alright, so to get started, you always need a Phillips head screwdriver. This is the only tool that you will need besides what comes in all of your cases and boxes and the sort of things that you get with your computer. First off, you need the case. In this case, this is a rack server from, I believe, UW Stout that Jack Hildebrand was nice enough to provide over there. In addition, we have the motherboard. Now, this is a Gigabyte motherboard. Gigabyte is a brand of motherboards. This particular one is a Micro ATX AMD motherboard. AMD is a type of processor like Intel. In your motherboard box, you will also get this. This is called a faceplate. It will go on your case back here, approximately, and it will make the ports on the back of your motherboard look nice and clean. All right. For storage, you need a hard drive or an SSD. In this build, we have a hard drive. This is a 500 gigabyte Seagate hard drive, 7200 RPM, SATA, not IDE. That is very critical for newer builds. You cannot have an IDE hard drive. Excuse me. This is the CPU. This is, again, an AMD AM2 Plus CPU. That's the socket type. It has a ton of little pins on the bottom, and it has a nice big heatsink on the top. Over here we have the CPU fan. This will come with the CPU. It sits on top of the CPU and basically draws heat away from it and keeps it nice and cool. This over here is our power supply. This one is a non-modular power supply. If it was modular, we wouldn't have all these cables coming out of the back. We could plug each of one in individually. This is going to provide power to your computer. This one, I have no idea what brand it is. We just kind of got it, spare parts type thing. It's a 300 watt. It's going to work fine for us. In addition, we also have the RAM. This is known as random access memory. Many people mistake saying how much memory they have in their computer. This is what memory is. This is not memory. This is storage space. Memory is used, oftentimes it'll speed up your computer. It acts as a cache to help hold jobs for your computer when it's idling. We have 4 sticks, no idea what size they are, but it's plenty for this build. This is a SATA cable. It transfers data between the hard drive and the motherboard, and this particular one is black, like my soul. Alright, so to begin assembling the computer, first we need to remove this side panel from the case. Most cases will have either a latching system or a screw of some type. This one has 1 screw. And it's a little bit rough to pop off, but you want to keep this somewhere safe, generally, especially if it's a nice computer case. This one in this example is a piece of junk, so we don't really care about that. Inside you'll find all sorts of wires. Over here we have the front panel connectors, and back here we have the fan headers. The motherboard will sit approximately here. Some case manufacturers are kind enough to install the standoffs for the motherboard for you. We have one here, 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 and here. Some of them won't, and you'll have to screw them in yourself, but in this case, we won't have to. We also have a rack for the hard drive, and it has 2 fans that come pre-installed. Right, so now we will be installing the motherboard. To begin, we need to turn the case around so you can see this. This is called the I/O shield, as I told you before. They're a bit tricky to pop into this back piece right here, but you want to make sure they're out. You kind of got to press on all corners. It shouldn't be relatively easy once you kind of figure out what you're doing. Then the motherboard, you can slide in, make sure all the I/O line up, and as well as the standoffs on the motherboard. Just kind of slide it into place, hold it down with a finger, grab one of the motherboard screws that came with your computer. Usually look for the center screw and screw it in just about finger tight. It doesn't have to be that tight because there are 9 screws that you need to screw in. In this case, we only have 3 because the other screws have been lost.
All right, and the next thing you're going to have to do is install the power supply. So this is the most important part, in my opinion. It does power the whole thing. So if you have a bad one, it can destroy the whole system. So make sure you buy a good one for your computer. Like I said earlier, this is a power supply that we just sort of found. So not the most ideal of solutions, but for the purpose of this demonstration, it's perfect. So you're just going to want to slide it in. Put the cords in there. As you can see, they'll line up with the slot on the case. All right, and then we're going to be installing the screws to strap it onto the case so it doesn't fall off. All right, there's one. And 2. 3. And 4. All right, now we're going to have to plug it in to the motherboard. So I'll take this out for now. It will be the largest cable, and you want to just plug it into the port that looks like it matches it. These are fairly idiot-proof. All of the holes can only fit one way. So there you go, it's plugged in. Set it down, and we'll turn it around. And we'll move on to the next part. I think let's actually install this. All right.
Next we need to install the front panel connectors. These are the things on the front that allow you to press the power buttons. That is located back here. All right, and various like USB connectors and such. First we have the power switch. Then we have the power LED. Next we have the hard drive LED. These are very finicky and the wires can easily break off, so you must be careful. Also, orientation is critical for many of them. Some of them it is not. However, you need to make sure if it is to pay attention to where it goes. And this last one, I'm sorry, is the reset switch. You must also take I've lost it for some reason. Where is that? This is a very critical piece, so it's very important not to lose it. Here it is. The CPU power pin. This is what provides power to the central processing unit, the processor. And that just slides in right there. Next, we will install the CPU. First, pick up the CPU and find the gold triangle on the corner of the CPU. Next, lift up the lever on the CPU socket and look for the triangle on the corner of the CPU socket as well. Match the two triangles together and gently set the CPU on the socket. Give it a little wiggle to make sure it's in place. Then press down the lever. Again, you should not have to apply any force to either the CPU or the lever itself, and make sure it is latched into place. Next, you need to apply thermal paste. In this case, there is already thermal paste on the CPU, so we will not bother with that. After that, we will take the CPU heatsink and the fan and install that on top of the CPU. Gently set the CPU fan and heatsink on top of the CPU. Alright. Then latch the corner, latch onto the latch on the motherboard. Then latch the other side on and pull down on the lever. Should seat it in place. It should barely move at all. Next, find the pins labeled CPU power header, CPU fan power header, excuse me, and plug the CPU fan into those ports. We also will install the back fan back here, the exhaust fan, and find any fan header on the motherboard and install the plug. Alright, next we're going to install the RAM. I have recently discovered we have 6 gigabytes of RAM. You want to take the RAM module and match the little notch in the RAM with the slot in the motherboard. Pull down on the 2 levers on either side and slot it in place. Apply pressure until the 2 arms snap up. You shouldn't have to push these in. Just push down straight on the RAM. Don't push side to side at all until it clicks in. Then just push on the little clips a little bit just to make sure they're seated. Do that with all sticks of RAM. If you do not have enough RAM to fill up all the slots on your motherboard, make sure you do alternating slots. Do not put them right next to each other. This should not affect much, although it is always best to be cautious and go by the motherboard's directions. Alright, next we're going to install the hard drive. So first, remove the hard drive cage. Next, take the hard drive and slot it into place. You will see the screws come into alignment with the holes. Just twist them with your fingers to get them started. And screw them until, again, finger tight with the screwdriver. Do this for all 3 screws. Usually there will be 4 screws, but again, we have lost some equipment due to Jack, or whoever sold Jack in this server. Again, this is an example. You need to be careful when you're installing this. Just if something doesn't appear to be going in right, just take out the other screws, make sure it's going in correctly. I mean, these are usually pretty expensive parts. Just make sure everything's seated properly so you don't damage these things. Alright, once the hard drive is installed, you can set the cage back inside the computer. Make sure it's seated properly. Align the screws and screw them in to secure the hard drive cage. Alrighty. Next, take your SATA cable and slide it into the corresponding adapter on your hard drive. Or, excuse me. Make sure you have the correct. Don't force it in, and make sure you have it from the correct angle. There will be a little notch in it. It's really easy to tell the way that it slots in. And then slide it into the SATA port number 1 on your motherboard. Next, take most power supplies will have a corresponding plug that adapts to your hard drive, but in this case it doesn't, so we are going to use a power adapter. This is a Legacy Molex connector. This is the old plug that most motherboards and power supplies used to use. It's Molex. This is a SATA power port. Excuse me. Alrighty, and make sure it aligns with the power on the hard drive and slide it into place. Alrighty, once you have all the pieces back together, you can pick up your side panel, slide it back on, make sure it is secure, and your computer is done. Alright, so my companions here are joining me for the final shot.
Hello?
That's Jack.
Yes.
And Damek's gone. He died in a car crash.
You can join us.
His mutilated body is entering the scene.
He's our cameraman. Yeah. Alright.
Alright, so
We've got everything all set up and ready to test it now.
we have the monitor, which I just dug out of the basement, and my keyboard. Keyboard.
Typically, you'd have to install another OS. After you get all the parts installed, you'd have to install Windows or whatever. But for the purpose of testing, we've already got an operating system on it, so you can see it running and in action. All right, let's start it.
So we have the monitor.
And then we've got the power switch. and it roars to life.
Makes lots of noise.
It's very loud.
This is a server OS, so you won't see the Windows display like you normally do. But
It'll be all text, and it'll be a terminal. We'll wait for it to start up. Don't mind the fail there. That's just, we don't have it plugged into the internet. Usually with Ubuntu, it will check for updates, and it can't connect to its update server, so it fails.
Ubuntu is an operating system. It's free, open source. Like it's Linux, which is there's Mac, Windows, and Linux. Except Ubuntu is Linux and it's free. So
Yeah.
Usually, especially if you're spending a lot of money on a build, and you're trying to budget your money, Ubuntu is a great way to go because it works very, very, very well.
And there's a lot of game support if you're into that. There's a Steam modification to Ubuntu that's just for gaming. We'll wait for it to find out that it doesn't have internet.
Now, one step we left out is the graphics card, especially for gamers. Graphics card is a very critical component. That is what powers your monitor, essentially. It does all the graphics processing for your computer. This one has a built-in graphics card, but 90% of the time, your built-in graphics card will be worse than your onboard, your external PCIe flash or graphics card. Generally.
So if you are a gamer, you probably so it's not a part that you need, assuming you have an onboard on your motherboard, but which a lot of the lower end motherboards do. But that is something that's necessary if you want to play games like this. For instance, wouldn't be able to play any games. It would be hard pressed to play almost anything that's on the market right now.
So now we're booted into Ubuntu server.
And I'll log in and we'll see that it's all working. See, everything's working and we can run commands. I don't know if we do. I do have a Minecraft server on here.
Jack used to run his Minecraft server
Yeah.
off of this for me and Damek and Henry in the other class, but then he found out that it sucks power like an elephant drinking water, if that makes any sense. For servers, a graphics card is not needed. Everything is RAM and CPU. In fact, the only reason you need a graphics card in a server is just so you know what you are doing.
All right.
That is how to build a computer.